What do you do when the world has already decided who you're supposed to be, and it's not who you are? PJ Morton was born into gospel royalty, the son of a famous preacher, raised in the pulpit, trained in the choir, and practically baptized in a Hammond B3. Everyone thought they knew his story before it even started, but behind the church boy image was a frustrated kid quietly rebelling, writing R&B songs in secret, dreaming of Stevie Wonder, and wondering if he'd ever be allowed to just be himself. He got rejected by gospel, overlooked by the music industry, and even when he finally broke through, they still tried to label him a backup player, a church kid turned sellout, a sidekick in Maroon 5. But what they didn't see coming was that PJ Morton would become a Grammy-winning powerhouse who built his own empire while everyone was busy doubting him. So how did a preacher's son break free from the pews and shake up the entire R&B industry? Let's talk about it. To understand how PJ Morton flipped the script, you've got to understand the box they tried to shove him into from the jump. See, when your dad is Bishop Paul S. Morton, a gospel icon, a megachurch leader, and founder of the Full Gospel Baptist Church Fellowship, you don't get the luxury of figuring out who you are. The moment PJ could talk, everyone already had his future mapped out. You're gonna be just like your daddy, they said, the next great preacher, a gospel artist, a leader of men, and they meant it as a compliment. But it felt more like a prison sentence. Growing up in New Orleans, PJ was surrounded by faith, music, and expectations. Heavy ones. He played in the church band. He wrote gospel songs. He even tried to modernize the sound to fit his own vibe. But every time he strayed even a little from the traditional sound, the whispers got louder. You're trying too hard to be different. This ain't what your daddy would do. Why you out here trying to be Stevie when God called you to be Kirk? It wasn't just strangers either. These were people PJ looked up to. Church elders, mentors, family friends, grown adults who thought they knew him better than he knew himself. So, for years, he tried to fit the mold. He played it safe. He did the gospel thing. But deep down, he knew he was faking it. Because PJ wasn't just hearing church hymns in his head, he was hearing Stevie Wonder, Prince, the Beatles. And the truth was, he didn't want to lead revivals. He wanted to make records. But that truth was messy. It didn't fit in a Sunday sermon. And in the gospel world, stepping out of line isn't just rebellious, it's borderline betrayal. So people assumed PJ's path would be smooth. After all, he had the name, the talent, the access. But what they didn't realize was that being the preacher's kid wasn't a cheat code. It was a straitjacket. And the second he started carving his own lane, everything got harder. Because once PJ said, "I'm not my father," the industry said, "Well, then you're nobody." Here's the truth nobody likes to say out loud. PJ Morton wasn't embraced. He was ignored. You'd think being a preacher's son with a voice, a pen, and gospel chops would open all the right doors. Nope. The gospel crowd thought he was getting too secular. And the R&B world, they didn't know what to do with him. Too churchy, too clean, too positive. He didn't fit the thug R&B narrative. He wasn't out here taking off his shirt and moaning into the mic about cheating on somebody's girlfriend. He was writing lyrics with soul, and that confused people. And that's when the rejection started piling up. Label execs passed. A&Rs didn't return calls. One major label even told him flat out, "We love the voice, but there's no market for you." Translation? You don't fit the mold. You're not messy enough. You're not trendy enough. You're not marketable. This was before the indie R&B wave took over, before it was cool to be genreless or soulful. PJ was ahead of his time, but being ahead also meant being alone. So when he finally got a break as the keyboardist for Maroon 5, people thought he'd made it. But let's keep it real, that came with a whole new set of insults. People started calling him Adam Levine's backup. Some folks even said he left the church to play background for a pop band. They didn't get it. He wasn't chasing clout. He was surviving. And even while touring the world with one of the biggest bands on the planet, PJ still got side-eyed. He didn't get magazine covers. He didn't get solo radio play. He didn't even get his own spotlight on stage most of the time. It was like he was famous, adjacent. But here's where the hot take flips everything. The industry didn't embrace PJ Morton until he embraced himself first. Not when he played by their rules. Not when he tried to fit in. Only when he said, "Forget your boxes. I'll build my own lane." And that's when the Grammys started calling. But before we get to the trophies and the headlines, we got to talk about the one cassette that tape that completely rewired PJ's soul. And the friendship that followed. It all started with one dusty old cassette. A friend handed PJ Morton a tape of Stevie Wonder's I Never Dreamed You'd Leave in Summer. That was it. That was the spark. The moment PJ's musical brain got scrambled, in the best way possible. He wasn't just listening anymore. He was studying, analyzing every chord, every note, every breath. This wasn't just admiration, this was obsession, and it became a mission. Find every Stevie Wonder song ever made. The hits, the deep cuts, the live bootlegs, he wanted it all. Because for the first time, he heard someone who wasn't afraid to be soulful, complex, weird, and brilliant all at once. Someone who didn't need to fit in a box to be undeniable. Fast forward years later, and somehow, PJ didn't just meet Stevie Wonder, he became his friend. No publicist setup, no clout-chasing gimmicks, just mutual respect, musical trust, and vibes. And not only that, Stevie let PJ produce him. Yes, you read that right. PJ Morton, the same guy the industry said had no lane, ended up producing Stevie Wonder. Imagine the pressure. PJ was treating him like the legend he is, all nervous, like, do you want to do it again, Mr. Wonder? And Stevie, cool as ever, just vibing like, you want me to do it again? But that moment changed PJ. It was the ultimate cosign. Stevie wasn't just encouraging him, he was validating him, letting PJ know that his instincts, his ears, and his vision were worthy. And of course, no Stevie segment is complete without the infamous elevator conspiracy. If you haven't heard it, here's the quick tea. Shaq swears Stevie Wonder can actually see. Allegedly, they were in the same elevator, and Stevie, who was already inside, greeted Shaq the moment the doors opened. No one spoke, no one announced it, just, "What's up, Shaq?" Everybody's been side-eyeing that story for years. And when PJ was asked about it, all he said was, "Not as far as I know. Smooth, mysterious, no confirmation, no denial. Just letting the legend of Stevie swirl in the air like incense." But real ones know that elevator moment isn't even the wildest part. Because what most people don't realize is that Stevie Wonder's mentorship didn't just give PJ musical confidence, it gave him emotional armor. Armor he'd need for what came next. Because the music industry wasn't PJ's biggest hurdle. It was family. And when he finally told his father he wasn't taking over the church, it could have ended everything. Now here's where things get real personal. Imagine being the son of one of the most powerful black pastors in America, a man with a megachurch empire, gospel albums, political connections, you name it. That's Bishop Paul S. Morton. So when PJ picked up the phone to say, "I don't want your life," he wasn't just making a career decision. He was going against the entire blueprint of his existence. And let's be honest, most preachers' kids don't get that kind of freedom. There's a certain kind of unspoken contract in black church culture. If your daddy's the bishop, you either become a preacher or you sing for Jesus. Period. PJ tried. Lord knows he tried. He was writing gospel songs, making them as fly and contemporary as he could, just to make it work. But it never fit. It always felt like a fight against himself. And eventually, he snapped. Not in an explosive, dramatic way, but in that quiet kind of breakdown that only artists understand. He got tired of pretending, of holding back, of watching other people live their truth while he lived someone else's script. So one day he picked up the phone, called his father, and dropped the bomb. "I can't do this anymore. I need to find my own sound, my own path. I'm not you." Now pause, because this could have gone left real quick. But here's the twist no one expected. Bishop Paul Morton didn't fight it. He didn't guilt trip him. He didn't disown him. He didn't even raise his voice. He said, "The way you do this is going to look different from how I did this, and I support you." That's a flex in itself, a rare flex, because most preacher daddies would have hit him with that, "You're turning your back on the Lord" speech. But Bishop Morton gave PJ the green light to follow his gut, and that changed everything. Still, the emotional weight didn't just disappear. PJ carried what he calls gospel guilt for years. He wasn't out here dropping stripper anthems or wild party tracks, but just stepping outside of that sacred gospel bubble had people whispering, "Did you hear about Bishop Morton's son? He's with that pop band now. Guess he's not saved anymore." The judgment was relentless, especially because he wasn't doing bad. He was doing great, and people love to weaponize success when it doesn't look how they think it should. But the truth was, PJ never turned his back on faith. He just stopped letting it control his creativity. He wasn't running from God. He was running from expectations. And ironically, it was only after he left the church professionally that he started becoming the man his father always wanted him to be, authentic, fearless, and free. But while family gave him peace, fame was still a battle, because PJ wasn't just stepping out on faith, he was stepping into massive stage fright. For someone who commands a stage now with soul, swagger, and precision, you'd never guess this man used to literally shake before performing. PJ Morton was never trying to be the star. He wanted to be the musician behind the star, the George Harrison, the Paul McCartney, the guy in the background making the magic happen, not the one in the spotlight soaking up all the pressure. He said it himself. He was a reluctant frontman. In his heart, he was just a kid who liked to write songs and play keys. Singing, being seen, that was scary. He would get so nervous before performances that his hands would tremble over the keyboard. Not because he wasn't talented, because he didn't think he deserved to be the one out front. And let's be real, the industry doesn't nurture that kind of humility. They want stars with arrogance, not artists with anxiety. PJ had to be pushed into the spotlight. And guess who did the pushing? His dad. Yeah, the same dad he thought he was rebelling against turned out to be the one saying, "I need you to get over this fear." And it worked. Slowly, painfully, awkwardly, it worked. But he still needed a reminder. A mantra. Something to snap him back into confidence when the self-doubt crept in. That's where FMFM comes in. Follow my first mind. He tattooed it on his body. And if that sounds cryptic, here's what it means. It's about trusting your instinct before fear talks you out of it. You get a big idea, a dream, a crazy goal? That first mind says go for it. But then comes that second mind, the insecure one, the anxious one, the one that says, nah, that's too big, that's too wild, that's not you. PJ made a decision. Don't listen to that voice anymore. Tattoo the first voice onto your skin if you have to. Just follow it, because that's the voice that told him to leave gospel. That's the voice that told him to go solo. That's the voice that told him to quit chasing labels and build his own. That's the voice that told him, yes, you belong on stage. And once he locked in on that frequency, the album started flowing. The Grammy nods started rolling in. And the nerves, they didn't disappear, but they got drowned out by purpose. But PJ wasn't done challenging himself, because while most artists were chilling in studios, he decided to do something wild. A self-imposed creative boot camp across 4 African countries, and he only gave himself 30 days to finish an entire album. Okay, so imagine this. You're already a Grammy-winning artist, an accomplished producer, and a respected musician in both gospel and R&B lanes. Most people would chill, coast a little, maybe drop a deluxe version of their last album and call it a day. Not PJ Morton. Instead, he packed up and flew across the world for a musical experiment that sounds like something out of a Netflix documentary, which, by the way, it will be soon. The man gave himself just 30 days to record an entire album while traveling from Cape Town to Cairo. No big studio budgets, no extended timelines, just the road, a small crew, and whatever instruments and inspiration he could gather along the way. This was a full-on pilgrimage. He went from South Africa to Nigeria, Ghana, and finally Egypt, recording in hotel rooms, connecting with local artists, absorbing sounds, flavors, dialects, and drum patterns. Every place he touched added another layer to the project's DNA. He wasn't just making music, he was making meaning. He ate with locals, danced in streets, prayed in temples, and brought that experience straight into the booth. The result? A globally inspired body of work that's unlike anything he's done before. And let's not get it twisted. This wasn't some tourist with a microphone gimmick. PJ came in with respect. He didn't try to take from African culture. He let it lead him. But behind the scenes, people close to PJ say this wasn't just about music. It was about healing. He'd been burned out, tired, questioning the grind, wondering if the industry was even worth it anymore. That African journey wasn't just creative, it was spiritual. Some insiders even whisper that PJ was dangerously close to quitting music altogether before this trip. That he needed to leave the US, leave the industry noise, and just remember why he started. And maybe that's why the music from this project hits so differently. It doesn't sound like an artist chasing a hit. It sounds like a man rediscovering his why. And the craziest part? He pulled it off. An entire album, 4 countries, 30 days, 0 excuses. But even after proving he could do the impossible, the industry still tried to pretend like he wasn't mainstream enough, wasn't flashy enough, wasn't marketable. Which brings us to the most ironic twist in this whole story. PJ Morton is the underdog who won, but the game still acts like he's not in the room. So here's the million-dollar irony. PJ Morton has everything the industry claims to respect: talent, integrity, originality, versatility, and hardware to prove it. Yet he's still treated like a side character in his own story. Let's start with the receipts. Since going independent, PJ has racked up multiple Grammy Awards. Not nominations, wins. Best Traditional R&B Performance, Best Gospel Album, Best R&B Song. The man has cleaned up in multiple genres without ever needing to compromise his sound or his message. No viral gimmicks, no drama with other artists, no thirsty headlines, just real music, consistent excellence. And yet, every time award season rolls around or top 10 R&B artists lists drop, guess who gets left off? PJ Morton. Again, and again, and again. And that's what makes his story so wildly ironic. He's not some bitter veteran begging for his flowers. He's got the flowers, the bouquet, the damn garden. But somehow he's still painted as underrated, still called one to watch when he's already decades deep in the game. It's like the industry respects him, but from a distance. Like they don't know what to do with someone who doesn't fit the typical R&B blueprint. Let's not forget, this man wrote a book, not a scandalous tell-all, not a ghost-written flex, a deeply personal memoir called Saturday Night, Sunday Morning, about trying to balance the sacred and the secular, the pulpit and the pop stage, his father's legacy and his own lane. He doesn't chase trends, he starts them. He didn't wait for a label, he built his own. He didn't need viral TikToks, he made timeless albums. And still, folks act like he's just that dude from Maroon 5 who plays the keys. Like, be serious. He's your favorite artist's favorite artist. The one who sat next to Stevie Wonder in the studio and made him say, "Run it back." The one who proved you don't have to sell out to sell records, but that's the cost of doing it your own way. You can win and still be underestimated. You can get the Grammys, the sold-out shows, the global respect, and the industry will still squint and ask, wait, who is this guy again? Which just makes PJ Morton's whole journey even more legendary. Because he never needed the validation, he earned it, and he never stopped betting on himself, even when no one else would. The industry didn't make PJ Morton. In fact, it tried to break him, politely of course. With silence, with rejection, with backhanded compliments and closed doors. But he didn't wait for their permission. He didn't wait for a cosign, a major label check, or a viral moment. He believed himself first. Before the Grammys, before the book, before the praise. He chose authenticity over approval, soul over spectacle, purpose over popularity. And in a world that constantly tells artists to pick a side, to either stay in the pews or sell their soul, PJ Morton did something radical. He chose both. He made room for both. He proved that you can be spiritual without being boxed in, that you can create for you and still connect with millions. That you can follow your first mind, even when it scares the hell out of you, and come out the other side stronger, freer, and more yourself than ever before. So next time someone calls him underrated, correct them. PJ Morton isn't underrated, he's just unbothered, because he knows the truth. They can overlook you, underestimate you, ignore you, but they can't erase what you built on your own terms. And PJ Morton, he built all of this. With shaky hands, a stubborn heart, and a soundtrack that made the whole world finally listen.